for any player to be part of that series was just a huge privilege. People had been starved of having the British Lions, and on the back of, you know, winning the World Cup in 95, I think we were still reveling in the glory of that. So from a spectator's point of view, to have that World Cup and then the British Lions to follow, it was just something special. So there was huge excitement. I think it had been quite a difficult period, you know, since the World Cup. For me personally, taking over from Francois, who was an icon and had done so well in that 95 competition. And then we had a couple of coaching changes. And then, you know, we had lost to the All Blacks after the 95, you know, World Cup. That year after, they came and did a three-match test series here, and we lost at home, which was the first. Then getting into professional rugby, you know, there'd been the model of contracting didn't really lend itself to a team environment, because there were certain World Cup players that had moved on and or weren't making the setup, but were still under contract. So it was quite an unsettling time. I think our press wrote us up as favourites. I think on the back of what the guys had achieved in 95. You know, we had a number of encounters against England, and there were some serious players from the English side there. There were also a couple of unknown players that during the tour stepped up to the plate. So although the press sort of wrote us up, I think as players we understood that they were a formidable side. They did have a very tough itinerary. So in a way we thought maybe they might take, that could have an effect of them. But they just seemed to get better and better as the tour progressed, you know. And we also knew the coach was a very established coach and had huge experience behind him, and unfortunately we were going into the game with a new coach, so from our side was quite unsettled. It was a tough tour, you know. They were playing some seriously good provincial sides, which in those days your provincial sides were, you know, there weren't a lot of players playing overseas, so they were strong, so they had to get through those games. It was physical. I mean, we were fortunate. We had also played the All Blacks a year before at home, and that was probably the most physical game, test series that I've played in. So we didn't expect anything different from the Lions. You know, if you look at the makeup, the likes of Martin, their back row, Hill, Lawrence Delelio, you know, they were physically powerful. I did think we would have a more of an impact, or that our front row, but they seemed to be able to contain us because the press had written it up as us being favourites. That pressure continues, and as a South African player you expect that. You know, I'd hate to be part of a nation where they accept second best, so you accept that. And I just think if all the cogs within the wheel had been aligned, we would have handled the pressure better, but we didn't. Someone asked me the other day what I would say to Sia with the Lions coming up, and I think the key is just to get that first test win. I felt the whole game we were in control, but just couldn't get the points ahead, and it just kept too close. And then a fatal error of myself, falling for Matt Dawson's dummy, which I'm reminded of every time I speak to someone about the Lions. But in all honesty, I felt we should have been further ahead. But at the end of the day, they got the win and deserved the win. From there, the pressure just mounts, and one could see that in our game against them in Durban. There are not many tests when you outscore the opposition 3-0, and you end up losing the test. And I think that just points to the pressure was just mounting, giving those penalties away, knowingly that they got one of the best kickers in the world. And then, we just couldn't buy a kick. So at the end of the day, it just came down to that drop goal. But in all honesty, if our discipline had been better, then we wouldn't have given such kickable penalties away. But I think that just reverted to the pressure that had built up after losing the first test. You've got to close out the game, and we just couldn't do that. It wasn't hard to pick them up. There's always in the back of your mind that the British Lions have won, the series. This really doesn't impact on the series. So I think the players know that we had let the nation and our management team down, and they were going to ensure that it was certainly not going to be a 3-0. So it wasn't hard to get the guys up for it. I think we also know that all players get onto that field and they want to win. Doesn't matter. They would have, in their own minds, they would have wanted a 3-0 whitewash. So yeah, it wasn't too hard. There's such fine margins, and to win a series like that, everything has to be right within the camp. And maybe it was my inexperience as a captain. Myself and Carl had a long time together. That relationship has to be on the same page between the coach and the captain. And not saying we were different pages, but we hadn't had time to build up that relationship. And that was virtually his first coaching position, So it doesn't matter who you are. If you haven't had that experience, you might say something and the players sort of start questioning it because that person hasn't been through the system. Even though he might be right in what he's saying, you might have the doubts. So it wasn't 100%, and you've got to be 100% to win those games. I'm excited. People are all saying that South Africa is undercooked and underprepared, which can sometimes work in your favour. I do think that coach is fortunate that there's a lot of players playing overseas, so they've had a lot of rugby. So I think the mix on how he gets overseas players and local players is going to be crucial. So yeah, I think there's two teams that are quite differently prepared, and that makes it quite exciting. Both very good coaches. Jacques obviously, but I know he's got close support with Rassie, so I think Rassie will be very involved. We haven't seen anything of South Africa since the World Cup win. You look at the semi-finals against Wales, where there was so much kicking, and then changed it completely against England in the final. So he shows he can adapt, and the players adapted with that too. So it's going to be two good coaches that are very well experienced and will be trying to outwit the other one.